Nigeria, you're welcome to Economic Discourse as we continue to assess the COVID-19 implications and impact on the economy and other developing issues. With me today to discuss this is Mr. Bimbola Agbolaje, MD, WNT Capitals. Nice to have you, sir, in the program.
Good morning, Otobase. Thanks for having me.
Yes, good morning. And how is the lockdown experience so far for you?
Well, we're trying to enjoy it, but I've been engaged doing things that we didn't have time to do while we were at work, reading and watching the news.
Okay, reading and watching the news. A lot to read about, and nice to have you. First, we want to look at the remarkable level of philanthropy that's been responding to the COVID-19 challenge. We've seen billionaires, we've seen celebrities, we've seen faith-based organizations, we've seen several individuals making donations. And down to Nigeria, we see the CACOVID led by the Central Bank of Nigeria, which has raised over 21 billion naira now. We've also seen from the petroleum sector, key players raise also over 21 billion. In terms of this goodwill and response, billion naira, describe this new private sector approach to philanthropy to support containing this pandemic.
Yeah, it's quite impressive, and I must say that the private sector, they're acting out of enlightened self-interest. It's a pandemic. It's not something that's quarantined in some obscure parts of Nigeria. It's in the commercial capitals, Lagos, Abuja, where people make money, where a lot of Nigeria's productivity is based. This is most affected. So it's rational, it's expected, and the private sector have to come out to do the things they are doing. 21 billion, you said, it's a lot of money. But my own view is that what the private sector can contribute that can have the most effect is not really money. It's organizational capacity, execution capacity, designing robust interventions, working with the government. I'd like to see more of that.
Okay, and you've worked also with various multilateral development banks. You work with several agencies in intervention projects, and you talked about organizational efficiency. You're talking about capacity and also efficiency in driving this whole process. What would you like to see in terms of ensuring that these whole funds are deployed effectively to meet those demands of healthcare infrastructure, meet those demands of social interventions, meet those demands of quick ramping up of detection, screening, and reaching out to all parts of the country to ensure that everybody's included in the whole process of intervention?
Yeah, perhaps I should mention this. I worked with the UNDP, I think in 2004, in designing interventions for Ministry of Health and Ministry of Agriculture. That was a bit, different. We're looking at how the Ministry of Agriculture could intervene in farming areas and get them prepared to resist SARS, and how the facility of the Ministry of Health to take care of people. This is an old ball game. It's much bigger. It spreads easily. So the response has to be more organized, has to be more strategic. To me, it's first designing what you want to intervene on and the objectives. We have to be at our best game possible. We haven't got the capacity of New York, of London, of Italy, and see what this is doing to them. We don't want to get to that stage at all. So we need to be on our best possible game. Let's talk about design. When you want to do social protection, from the little person, there are a lot of questions around who is vulnerable, who is to be protected, and how. Those questions are not being answered in the way the government has intervened. I start to be corrected. They've not communicated a lot on the parameters for choosing the people they distributed money to. But from what I've seen on social media, they're saying they're distributing money to people in states that are not even on the lockdown. We have to be very careful.
Yeah.
This thing they do with us for
Yeah.
quite a while, you don't know. So you need to spend your resources very carefully. And it's very important to gain the trust of people. It's a very essential, it's an health crisis, but the capacity for governance and the respect people and the trust they have in what the government asks them to do is very important. So if you're distributing money, people are asking questions, you keep changing your mind, you allow markets, they're on the lockdown, you have neighborhood markets. You need solid plans and solid communication of the plans. So to me, we need to do far better work on identifying the vulnerable, and I don't think cash, this is exposing our weak capacity for governance. The data for identifying vulnerable people and reaching out to them is very weak, but we can wrap it up with good intention and knowing that we have to get this right. It's also important to me, distributing food like they've done in Lagos. We've seen very quickly how it's not going to work. Studies have shown that in institutions like this, it's far better to distribute or give cash to the vulnerable. There's the trail that you can audit. Yes. And there's also a very vital economic effect. The goal needs to be double-pronged. You protect the vulnerable, and as much as possible, you maintain local economic exchange, economic production safely. Yeah. So what am I saying? You don't distribute food. You cannot take over the distribution system for food. The government cannot take it over even in 1 year. It's very complex. Let people be safely able to produce food and transport food. It's quite possible to give some, let's say, green passes and test drivers. Let them be able to go to where food is produced, bring the food out to market. You can see what they're doing in places like India. It's not perfect, but they're building on it. Practicing social distancing in markets and policed by, by security agencies to make sure that people are there to eat. So you can't, the money we have to spend is very limited. If you ask everybody to sit at home, they're not working, distributing food, it cannot be sufficient. But when people in the rural area can still get an income and send food safely to the cities, people in the city can still buy food. You can now identify economic production is going on. You just have to make sure probably 40% of their load. How do you distribute face masks, sanitizers? How do you establish hand washing joints or spots in the market? So to summarize, the key is to design systems whereby people can still keep producing food and distributing food and selling food. A lot of the people you should give money to will already be able to go on with their livelihood. You don't need to give them handouts. Then you isolate the narrow segment of the population. You can support with money. And people even trading food and still making money will even have dependents that you're supposed to support that they can give money to food. Where we are now, food that is important.
Yeah. Now, you just mentioned something about the lockdown and the need to really have effective distributive systems. And across UK and all that. So in terms of a global model, how can governments begin to effectively address these distributive systems during this kind of period to ensure that these whole guidelines around social distancing, stay at home is not broken? People can really receive this. Learning from Wuhan, Wuhan has been on a lockdown for 76 days, and the report was that they were able to distribute this and people complied with that lockdown.
It's natural that differences in social systems, governance systems, economic systems will come up. You it's taken for granted. You can't just copy and paste. You have to design something that fits your own circumstances.
Yes.
Japan is not a model. We all know. China is a very authoritarian state. If the government tells you to sit down, you sit down. You haven't got a choice. We haven't got that power. We do what we like largely. The state is largely very poor at enforcing anything. So let's go to New York or London. Those are very organized societies. What happens? It's a panic buying. People, fighting over small supplies in the stores. And I think it's under control now. We haven't got the advantage. A lot of our people, the majority buy things in open markets. So I think the closest thing to us is India. The government, they're still the populist, Indian nationalists, so they have their own weaknesses. So probably we can only learn a bit. They announced the close down, the lockdown rather, very abruptly without also plans. I think the Prime Minister came out to apologize for the hardship cost. And we can learn from them. What we can learn from them is that they've been able to keep largely markets open. And you see the markets, people, they draw circles for people. And you have to queue, you have to stand in the box and not step out to your staff. So social distancing is being observed in the market. But the critical thing to learn is that you can't lock down people forever when there's no provision to feed
social provisions for them.
We have the capacity. Production and exchange have to go on in safe manner. And just douse the tensions. You've seen videos on Lagos Island, people chasing.
Yes, even dancing Kurudu and all that, yes.
So if you allow people to move around a bit safely, buy food, and it can be done. Lagos State put the idea of a neighborhood market. Those are things to build on. I think to be done safely. Wear the face mask. And I keep telling you, the private sector, for their fault, they deliver multi-billion-naira projects, factories, IT systems. They have far more capacity than the government. So in the area of governance, it's not only giving money. You have to bring in this private sector capacity. How people plan, execute, and define.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bimbola. So now we will just we'll now take a big break to give a recap of some of the sessions we had with Mr. Bolson Omofaye, and then we'll come back and he'll be joining us also alongside Mr. Bimbola. Stay tuned.
It's a conversation on Nigeria's economy, particularly at this period of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I have with me Mr. Bolson Omofaye, cerebral financial journalist and financial analyst with me, CEO, Frontier Africa Reports. Nice to have you once again.
Thank you so much for having me on Web TV, Otto.
You cover much of the finance market and, of course, banking, and you've been there. We've seen an interesting contribution level from the private sector to address this pandemic. I mean, 21 billion naira raised from the CBN private sector-led coalition against COVID, CACOVID. And we're also seeing from the petroleum sector, from Ministry of Petroleum, 10 billion plus the 11 billion initially raised by the NNPC-led strategy. And this is about 42 billion. This is seeing how private sector can really rally, raise funds to really address the challenge of the pandemic. What are your thoughts around this? And people are saying, wow, so we have this kind of money in Nigeria, and then challenges are there and are not being addressed. What are your thoughts around this?
I think the private sector has showed that they can actually, or what I call corporate Nigeria, can actually rally around the government, and I think that's a very nice way you've put it. It's a rally around the government because it's a case of emergency. So let's consider this COVID-19 pandemic as wartime. So let's say this is a war chest. It's a fund being put together to fight this war against the virus. That is completely different from a PPP arrangement. This is not a private sector, public sector partnership. This is rally round. This is everyone dropping his widow's mite in the box, and together we can fight this common enemy. which does not discriminate in terms of gender, in terms of age, and what have you, or business. So it's all well and good. That is suitable, or this is suitable for wartime situation. It is not exactly a template, the way forward for us to run things as an organized economy that wants to become robust, take a rightful place within the Committee of Nations globally and within the African space. And we must understand that. We are yet to find that template that works, mutually speaking, and beneficial to the people of Nigeria between the public and the private. Hello.
All right. Welcome back, and it's a very interesting conversation around the philanthropy, social intervention during this period of COVID-19, and how it can be effective for the citizens, because it's all about citizens, not just about policies. If it doesn't impact citizens, then what is the sense of such interventions, donations, and even policies at this time? So, Mr. Bosun Mofai, nice to have you.
Thank you very much for bringing me again to
like I asked Mr.
Web
Bibula,
TV.
how's the lockdown experience been? Day 9.
Well, the lockdown is still in effect.
Yeah.
But again, we need to keep reviewing situations as they go along. There were a bit of unsettling news going around. Incidences of thefts is beginning to happen. Yesterday I had 1 or 2 incidences of breaking and entry in the local community where I live, here in Lagos. And there were been more discussions I had on the street for some folks' homes being broken into and half bag of rice stolen in poor, low-income communities in Lagos. In some areas you find street auctions and others ganging together, setting up their own roadblocks in local areas, extorting almost violently money from people who drive or who walk around, the smoking, drugs, and high on alcohol. So these are beginning to happen. So I think it is time for us to review situations. Again, I go back, we have a high unemployment on our hands before the COVID-19 lockdown. We've locked down,
dominated by the informal sector too.
Yes,
Majorly,
yes, and we've locked down universities from basic school to the universities. So everybody's at home, one way or the other. What would students be doing? Polytechnics, universities, secondary schools, and what have you. The level at which folks prepared for the lockdown and the expenditure they're making is rising on a daily basis. Some of the provisions they made before the lockdown beginning to get exhausted. So if you take an average man on the street with about 2-3 kids who are in primary or early secondary school or colleges, and the mom is at home, the dad is at home, the kids are at home 24/7 in one room, face me, I face you, living space, then the volume of food and items consumed gets a lot higher. So earlier, you have kids go to school at about 7:30, leave them at 7:30, maybe come back by 3-4 o'clock. That saves some food items, whatever in the homes. Now that they are homes, beverages, milk, sugar, rice, whatever, gets consumed a lot faster than before. The appetite of these young ones are very high. And the mom and dad at home doing virtually nothing. So folks are getting a little bit hard pressed. I won't say at the edge yet, but getting really hard pressed. And that seems to explain the rise in the number of folks that you see on the streets. Okay? That explains it. That explains it. Folks are getting pushed to the wall gradually. And we need to begin to think very quickly. How are we going to handle this? In particular from the bad guys who want to take advantage of the situation to start robbing people, either in broad daylight, on the cover of darkness, entering people's homes because they believe you have what it takes in your house, and for them to eat or make life go by. This exposes quite a lot about the nature of our economy, the problems we had hitherto on our hands, now compounded by this virus pandemic.
Let me ask you, because the National Assembly has been saying that we need to really see clarity, transparency, and even the real impact of social intervention programs earmarked by this government for the poor. Because this period, it's about ensuring that the vulnerable, like Mr. Bibola said, are protected, that they feel the impact of the interventions. What would you like to see in terms of metrics or strategies of the people that have been impacted? We see the figures, but National Assembly leadership, some other leaders have come out to say we need to see how this is really impacting them.
This is a little bit difficult to unknot as I read them in the news as a journalist myself, as a business journalist. We have cash. There are multi-layers to this. I think the central bank and the organized private sector or corporate Nigeria seems to have held the top end of it. You have a committee, whatever, and you had billions of naira going into that. So there are measures being taken by a few government agencies to relieve companies and small businesses of the burden. Okay, so that's good. So we're coming down the bottom of the pyramid. We're getting to the bottom now where the social intervention program, money distribution and food distribution will have to be. And this exposes the fact that our governance structure had major fault lines ab initio. And the first of that is the problem with we don't even know how many we are as a population, as a Federal Republic of Nigeria, with 200 million or 220 or 180 or 150. Our address system is very poor. Our postal system is not up to speed. Now, how do you distribute food items or whatever palliatives to people in a way that is measurable and fairly and equitable distributed?
And impactful.
And that is what impact, where impact comes from. Impact comes from the structure that enables you distribute, know who you're distributing to, and all of that. So this shows a lot of the underbelly of how unstructured whatever that we've always had. And the level that's supposed to fix this for us in terms of governance is the local government. So if you say, look, Lagos State has 20 local governments, for example, and this is just hypothetical, and you say, okay, whatever, let's just say 20.
20,
whatever. 20, and you say we have 20 bags of rice. So you're distributing 1 bag per local government. The local government chairman and his council and councillors and administrators ought to know how many streets are in each local government, in their local government. And each councillor is responsible for 1, 2, 3 number of streets, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 number of streets in his area. Does he know those streets? So it goes through the councillors down to the development associations, whatever it is, down. So you know everybody who gets what on the street. You know, if you have 5 streets, how many buildings do you have on each street? And can we enumerate how many of them are vulnerable that requires part of this bag of rice? So it's easy. So if a local government has 10, 20 streets, then you know that you're distributing 1 bag of rice per 20 streets. So you just break it down to the last cup of rice. It's simple in terms of distribution or in terms of cash. But we don't have that. In the financial system, you have the banking sector with the BVN. So the central bank can say, the government says, look, take 1 billion naira and distribute it to every Nigerian that has a BVN. Okay? Or, but again, that's another issue because Aliko Dangote has a BVN. Tony Elumelu has a BVN. Even the central bank governor himself, Godwin Emefiele, has a BVN. So if we're distributing, should we distribute to such people, individuals, or to folks like me, or they say, oh, you're bossy, you're a TV show anchor and auto, you guys are qualified. Maybe we'll give to the cameramen in the studios here, or the drivers here at ProShare. You know, so we begin to decide, how do we decide the low-income people to distribute this money to? So myself and Abulu Ajay may not be qualifying for that intervention. So how do we decide down the line those that need to have? So if you say, if you have savings account, maybe that will be the first threshold. Then you get this, well, you have to have a current account, not a savings account. But again, we can see the flow through your bank you don't qualify for this 5,000 naira. And I said, okay, fine, thank you. Give to my neighbor or the man across the street. So we don't have these measures. So even our statistics that we have does not include the basic statistics. So the MPS is doing quite a lot. But population, streets enumeration, house enumeration, all the key strategic data that a good and reliable population or census should do for us is missing. So the government, even at the federal, is hard put to say, if we want to distribute it, who should distribute it for us in a manner that will go round everyone. So we're locked in here between the government has good intention to do, but hold on a second, if you let the cat out of the bag, how are you sure? So it's going to become a subject of debate for quite a long time. If I have the answers right now, I would say let us do it this way. In other climes, the post office ought to be the best way to also do it. Because everyone should have a postal address. You don't need to receive letters. And I spoke with the former Postmaster General, the immediate past Postmaster General, when he was in office before the latest round was done by Mr. President. And we had a lengthy conversation. Someone I know a little fair well. And he says, look, the postal system can help you even fix the issue of financial inclusion and everything. Make sure that everyone, if you have a house, a building of 20 rooms, face me, I face you, that's 10 on the left and 10 rooms on the right. Let each person has a post office box. In other words, in that single building, you have 20, right? So if you're a bachelor or a spinster living in one room, you don't need to receive letter. Just assign a post office number to that person. That post office number goes into the security digital system. Right? With the postal number, you have critical data of that individual, his name, his birthday, his surname, mother's maiden name, and all of that. So you have the basic information of everyone. So with a postal system, you can say we have, out of 200 million, we have 180 million people in our postal address system. And you can use the postal address system to get across to that man and say, here's the 1,000 naira helicopter money from the government. This is your own 5,000 naira. So the postal system helps you to say, in this house, in this building, in Ajegunle, in Alagbadu, in Ikeja, there are 20 rooms at number 18, so street. In these 20 rooms, Mr. ABC lives in room number 5. Right? This is his postal number. You can trace it. If it's not available there, if you go there even physically, you can come back because you know that's where he lives. And you have other measure of tracing him. That you can also tie to a BVN number, whether you have money in that account or you don't have. So what we should learn again from this pandemic is that it is time to get our census back. But we should do it as fast as yesterday. Our street addressing system, and make sure that everybody has a postal address by, may I use Nigerian balance, by fire, by force. Make sure everybody has a postal system. You don't need to post letter, you don't need to receive packages, just have a postal system. Again, it's one major tool of security in the advanced world. It's a major security tool, postal address, to say where was the last location Otto or Bosun's pension was sent to, where was the last address that we don't have it.
So we need to effect.
So the National Identity Card Program, NIMC, is good, but the postal system tracks you down to your village. It's attached to you till you die.
It's more inclusive in terms of.
It's a lot more inclusive. It's for the man. It's for the bottom of the pyramid to save us the mess of this sometime in the future.
No, like I asked Mr. Bimbola, the distributive system for people this period. We discussed about comparatively, like Wuhan. And that he said Wuhan, China has a very robust authoritarian system. Lockdown for 76 days, things flowed. But in New York, London, and parts like Nigeria, it's been a challenge keeping people for a long time. They have to get things, distribution of food systems and all that. And like in Lagos, we have now food markets assigned from tomorrow in different vicinities where people can go in schools to get things. But how can we effect these distributive systems during this period to ensure that people, despite this lockdown, are not really feeling caught out in terms of supplies? Because if this lockdown is 14 days, we don't know. We'll come to that next step of what we should expect in terms of if we extend it or not. But on this particular matter, how should we approach it?
It's we've never been through this before, and I appreciate the assistance and planning that Lagos State, the federal government, and other state governments are putting in place, and all government agencies. Yeah. We didn't have a template for this. The Ebola virus that came, we were fortunate enough, we were able to nip it in about too quickly before we got into this kind of situation. So that was good news for us back then. So right now we don't have a template for this to say, let's go and check the textbook, what it says on chapter this, paragraph that. So we don't have. So we need to now start thinking as the day goes by and try to manage the problems that has been existential with us. In other words, we have largely an unstructured economy and country. Even though on the surface it looks like we have, but we don't really have a structure of a pyramid type, or if you turn the pyramid over, when the pyramid goes to the top and the tip end is down here, how do we, or what we call an inverted pyramid, how do we deal with it? So that means that we need to think as the day goes by and go as the spirit directs, and I think that's what we're doing now. We're trying to make the best of it. I'm sure the authorities realize the ticking time bomb, if I will put it that way, the restlessness, let me put it a little bit more softer, the restlessness of the society and the people, especially the people at the bottom of the pyramid, where you have the largest concentration of the unemployed, largest concentration of school students who are at home, largest concentration of the informal people. If you have a fish farm, for example, and you have to sell the fish and what of that, now you have fish links, right? Where do you get supplies to feed those little, the fingerlings or whatever you call them, to grow? So, which means if you can reach the market to get feedstock for the fish farm, for your fish farm, once you sold off what you have, those ones are either going to die off or whatever. So there's a restriction on your movement. So lockdown there has a problem. Where does he get it? So it's going to go into losses. It's borrowed money from Boston Microfinance Bank, whatever it is, church, whatever. Friends.
Moratoriums and
So now see, you can give people moratorium. Let's get it straight. It does not say if you have an injury, you can put ointment on it, but it doesn't mean that it's still the normal skin. It means there's an injury that has to get healed. So you still carry that injury. It's different from the normal course of life. So that's what we have to deal with. How do we ensure the distributive system? The agencies will have to trust that they will do the best for the people and in the interest of the people. And we will not, at the end of all of this, begin to sniff around and see the signature of some of the unsavory stories from the Northeast in distribution of food to the IDPs in the Northeast Nigeria under the Boko Haram insurgency. I hope at the end of this all, we'll not be talking about hundreds of millions of dollars or billions that have either disappeared into some person's account, people stealing the firewood that were to be used to cook for the IDPs. It's not as funny as it's. I was in Borno State in Maiduguri for a couple of days.
And we could see the challenge.
And things that we heard were quite inhuman, that we Nigerians, some of us, very few of us, do to others under such pitiable situations. So we hope this rice and chicken and money, whatever, are not ending up, are not enriching, that we're not making millionaires. Making
millionaires out of the people's challenge.
Out of the people's lockdown. I hope some folks are not becoming overnight multi-millionaires. Okay? Under this situation, we just have to hope that that is not happening. So let's not be a little bit alarmist here.
So, Mr. Bimbola, let me come to you. In terms of the federal government's approach now to setting up a task force to also monitor and track how all these distributions are going on, showing that it's effectively done, and then also if the federal government should review this lockdown, should it be extended or not? I would like you to respond to these two. First, around the task force to track the distribution of all these interventions and donations, What should be their clear mandates, and who should they be working with to ensure that we see transparency? And indeed, considering these 14 days in Lagos, Ogun, and Abuja, they will be reviewing it. Do you expect to see an extension? I mean, Wuhan tried in China 76 days. I don't know if Nigeria can really take that stretch.
Zebimbola, can you hear me?
Can I hear you now? Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
So
I was asking that, yeah, okay.
We focus so much on execution and what people are doing or may not do when we talk about transparency.
Yes.
I think it should be the other way around. There are things that when you design, inbuilt in the design, you've allowed abuse. And that's what we should be more concerned about. It often strikes me that when I look at Western systems or even Asian systems, where people are a bit more comfortable, where you have some level of trust in public officials, they deliberately design processes not to allow personal interferences. But here that we know, as my friend was alluding to, we don't have tendencies. We don't design things that are open to abuse. How can you distribute 3.5 billion in cash? That's open source of abuses. And we have to plan and start from what we have. This is an emergency. You don't need to wait to build a foolproof identity system before you start intervening. And not having a foolproof identity system doesn't mean you have to do things prone to abuse. What can you do given what you have? If you decide to, write a software program and let that software program analyze all bank accounts in Nigeria, and they can, the mandate is that let's identify people who spend probably 600 naira a day, whose accounts always have the maximum deposit of probably 4,000 naira. You don't need any other data to tell you this person is poor. Both in you and I will not qualify. I often run into at least once a month at Rhapsody when we go and eat. We won't qualify because our bank account will say we sometimes have lunch for 3,000 naira. So when all this money that's been raised in the private sector, if you now give those people, there'll be duplication. Probably you have people in the house and you catch them as vulnerable and you transfer 5,000 to them in a week. That's 50,000 per household. Looking at telephone, let's use existing data and make smart decisions. If you decide, I know your own phone, you probably spend 800 a day or more and you buy data. When you talk to telcos and ask them to give you the profile of phone numbers of people spending only 200 naira a day, you are identifying poor people. How can you use that data and get cash to them? So there's a lot. Let's get ourselves. People, I don't want to mention any company, but people have delivered factories worth 4 million naira, IT systems worth, dollars, IT system, complex projects. They are far more capable than your local government. So let the private sector coalition against COVID work with governments to evolve these interventions. And something is key. The approach has to be joined up. There's no point, number one, the government can never replace the system of market women and bulk traders and food, who transport food. You can't do it in 10 years. Don't seek to replace it. Let them do their work safely and move food about safely. They give people cash in a transparent manner to buy the food. And it's important to start planning this way because the nature of this COVID-19, as we have seen, is not let's prevent it from spreading. And we don't know, it's to your second question, how long will the lockdown last? We do not know. So you have to plan for the worst. And planning for the worst means trying to conserve the money you have. You can't distribute money or food in neighborhoods. I have someone who's my friend on social media. He's a very top journalist in one place. You are giving him food. The guy has an income. So let's plan in a way that if we have to do the lockdown for 2 months, the resources are there, being wisely distributed for 2 months, allowing people who are doing critical things, and what's most critical at this moment is food. Let's plan to allow people to safely distribute food and sell food and identify the vulnerable and give them cash to buy food.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bimbola. And for you, Mr. Bolson, when you look at this same thing I've raised to Mr.
issue of the federal government having a task force to track the whole distribution process and donations,
yes.
What we're expecting from them in terms of bringing that transparency that will inspire confidence in the country, and then the lockdown. I mean, we don't hope to be like the Wuhan case of 76 days, and even in UK, it's almost getting to May that they're going to have that lockdown. But if this is to extend, how can this be managed effectively that we don't have these cases you're seeing now, because we're seeing the restlessness already?
Some folks just sent some reactions on social media, on Twitter, and says, look, we should, there's not even electricity. So how do they follow the issues? How do they follow the news and all of that? So I see that the first is that folks want to follow the issues and what have you. Now, the amount that you spend on internet and data is getting a lot higher. People are beginning to talk more and to use data to get in touch with their loved ones and families that are not around. So go on WhatsApp videos and Zoom, whatever, Skype, whatever. So we're spending more money on data. And that means whatever folks already have in their pockets, which ought to include the consumer goods, whatever is being spent on. So the guys smelling to the bank now are the internet data providers everywhere in the world. So, so that's how life is sometimes. But so we need to get this set. As I said yesterday, and I'm just repeating that now, sounding like a broken record. We need to use this opportunity to ramp up on those very critical areas of our lives, our economy that we had left largely not well attended. Electricity is one of it, or power, energy, whatever you describe it. We need to fix that. And this opportunity, this pandemic also shows that yes, you want people to see them at home, they won't be sitting in darkness and winking at each other. The devil finds work for idle hands. So you already have about millions of people in idleness or near idleness. So the devil is recruiting. And it's going to come and bite us at some point down the line. So we need to take care of that. Those who are in terms of distribution of what has been put together by others, to remember that these are people's sweat. If they're coming from companies, they need to remember that there's no free money. Some folks may think, oh, if XY Bank puts $1 billion on it, they have a lot of money there. The money
private organizations are also donated too.
Look, even for public companies, there are shareholders, there are investors, there are other stakeholders. These banks have whatever other obligations. So the $1 billion that GT Bank or Access Bank or Zenith Bank is putting on the table is no free money. No one should think that it's free money. It's not free money. It's going to be accounted for.
It must be accounted for.
They're going to pay dividend. They're going to pay staff salaries. They need to keep every system running, even under this lockdown. I mean, for the banks to start. So folks should not think this is free money or $1 billion from Access Bank or GT Bank or UBA. Oh yeah, we just have a pot of money. Let's just let it fritter away. This is our own cake. No, it's not a national cake. Nobody's building any national cake here. This is an emergency fund. and should be used expeditiously, judiciously, and in a manner that can alleviate the current situation, but gives us a template to build a sustainable system of economic development that is the backbone is industrialization moving forward. So where we're spending the money and distributing rice, chicken, and cooking oil, we need to understand that the key issue is that once this pandemic is over, in fact, the blueprint for our economic revival should be written under this wartime to be implemented moving forward.
Yeah.
If we don't use that as the basis of conversation, I understand. Because again, our health workers are putting their lives and those of their families at risk, at hospitals and elsewhere.
Yeah.
We need to write the blueprint of moving forward, of how we move forward in our healthcare system as part of the bigger picture. You know, there's a way we discuss economy, and we think it's all start and stop on Broad Street. No. Economy, or healthcare, education, whatever, all is part of the economic discussion. So I think we should begin again to not just discuss the distribution of these donations and philanthropic efforts, whatever, but discuss the bigger picture of how do we rebound from this? What is the sound bite? We're borrowing money. And again, go back and read the statement from the World Bank. The IMF chief, Christina Georgieva, and right there in the middle of paragraph 2, she's talked about not just the pandemic for Nigeria to fix it, but also Nigeria's balance of payments. I don't think most people miss that very little phrase in there. And it struck me that this money, $3.4 billion, were requested from the IMF. It's not just to fight the pandemic, but to help our balance of payments. In other words, our external reserves is dwindling. Our productivity is at a very low ebb. We're looking at the end of the barrel, or the short end of the carrot. Therefore, this money will have to be part of our balance of payments. And what is your balance of payments here? Everyone who has a little bit of sense of economics knows what it means. Our balance of payments, our current account is not in a good shape before this current pandemic. So right now, our back's against the wall. So we're going to be borrowing money, but to help us fix our balance of payments, which is your simple trial balance, between your credit side of your books and the debit side. Now, I've said a few things, and I'm going to talk about this within the time you allow me here, that there's a time now to make more sacrifices on the side of the executive and the legislature. 3 days ago, I hinted about this. The story is that the Senate or whatever, some folks are saying, they donate half of their salaries, of their salary, for 50% of their salaries. I think, and I read what Atiku Abubakar, the PDP presidential candidate and a former vice president
of Nigeria,
wrote this morning, and I read it through before coming to the studios here, and I picked up a few nuggets from there. We can have a few countries in Africa in which they are submitting their entire salaries down, but again, we still want to buy executive luxury cars for the National Assembly. I think the National Assembly, that should be the first thing they should throw into the ring to say these hundreds of billions of these luxury cars that we initially planned to buy for year 2020 oversight functions, we will continue to use our 2019 vehicles. This money, please, executive branch, Mr. President, Muhammadu Buhari, can you take this money back? We're not buying those cars again. I think that should be the first thing that the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Reps, should do. They should bring that first to the table. Then Nigerians will say, oh, that is good. Because that is a whole lot. Then the former vice president also mentioned a few things about how the government is also what is going to be used in the State House, at the villa for certain expenditure. We need to make certain sacrifices that go a long way. Not just beyond, because again, what's the average salary of someone in the say 50% of that. So if you say it's a 15 million or 5 million per month, okay, I give 50% of that down. Well, hold on a second. You're buying this same individual a vehicle that costs about 45 million naira. So he gives you half of his salary. So I give you half of my salary. My salary is 15 million. I surrender 7.5 million. But through the taxpayers' money, you're buying me a vehicle that is 50, 60 million naira.
So you should waive this. That's why I was being ordered.
Hold on a second. What have I lost? So they have the salary is good. Thank you, gentlemen, at the National Assembly and the legislature. But again, why don't you leave those vehicles for 2020 and say, look, this is a very tough situation we're in as a country. We can afford to let these multi-billion naira car project go. And a few other things. And say, look, for year 2020 also, we are also cutting back on the National Assembly budget. We want to revise it. If it's an average 150 billion naira every year, for the year 2020 to 2020, for 2020 and 2021, in the mid-short term, we're revising it down to 100, or a little below 100.
Yes.
Maybe just for symbolism's sake, we're going to do 90 or 95 billion, and we'll take off this. That will ring a lot of good bells,
send the signal,
music in Nigeria's ears, and you expect folks across the 36 state House of Assemblies
take that measure
to do the same. And say, look, we are calling on the House of Assemblies across the 36 states and the FCT to also cut down on their expenditure. So we need to revisit budget 2020, not on the side of the executive only because of the oil price at the bottom of the barrel, but also on the side of the legislature.
And the expenditure.
Which there's been so much hues and cries
for them to
before COVID to do something. So 50% salary looks like good measure, but hold on a second, let them forgo the car, revisit their own budget. Because right now, what you see in many African countries and elsewhere in the world, even in the corporate world, company executives are giving up their pay. Some are taking up their bonuses, some are calling back on dividends and two other things to support the initiative. So we need a lot more. We've heard a little bit from the federal, but across the states, I think the House of Assembly should also step forward and say we're reducing our budget. Every state governor's house, budget of the state house, should also say, look, we spend 2 billion a month or 1 billion a month to run the state house in XY state. We're cutting it down to 500 million. Okay? We're cutting a few campaign out, a few weekend, suya, whatever it is. We're taking allowances, we're taking it down for 2020, 2021, so that at least whatever happened in 2020, by 2021, we can begin to say, this is where we are. We need a lot more. We are borrowing. So I'm reading a little bit from Atiku Abubakar's script. I'm not his apologist here, but I found a lot of sense in what he says. We can't be borrowing $7 billion. We have the previous 20-something billion dollars.
That was initially the plan,
but again, we haven't really seen serious cost-cutting measure from the inside. We need to do that. So you're borrowing on one side. First of all, reduce your expenditure. So what he wrote, Atiku Abubakar wrote, had to do with Nigeria, and it's also about African leaders. What we need, he says in this piece, we need to look at the budget we've done. We need to reassess. We need to rethink our expenditure for this year and moving forward. And I think we all need to take that on board, regardless of whoever is on left or right side of political divide. This is not about politics or ethnicism or nepotism. This is for everyone,
inclusive.
Everyone is we're in the same boat here.
Yes. So in wrapping up, Mr. Abimbola, can you hear Mr. Abimbola? So in wrapping up, we know we talked about this prior to this session about the IMF Managing Director, Christina Georgieva. She was talking about the fact that Nigeria faces this challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, the challenge in the low oil price for its revenue. So how can we navigate this whole phase and, ensure that we can still, despite borrowing this amount, $3.4 billion, we can effectively manage it and manage our public finance management system and ensure that this country doesn't go through another phase of crisis?
Well, this is a very good opportunity, the crisis that we should not waste. And what I mean is that the economy will suffer because, as Dr. Ayoteriba of Economic Associates said, the policy agencies of the Nigerian government did absolutely nothing to prepare the economy for this strange shock of COVID and that has effects on the oil price, which translates into an income or revenue shock for us. So people reform under pressure because they haven't got a choice. So one could be optimistic and think, okay, our back is to the wall in terms of fiscal sense in terms of forex, oil price. So we haven't got the choice but to reform. So let's, Bolton has spoken a lot about cutting the budget, but let's also focus on, cutting expenditure. Let's also focus on the legislature and executive taking those hard reforms we need to take to grow the economy, not through how much we get from oil, but how we can signal to the world that our population is near 200 million. Our people could be very hard working. So bring your investment here, cut labor costs a bit low, and let's start to open Nigeria to produce for the world. Let's recompose our expenditure. It's good to borrow. If you borrow money to do interesting stuff, are we borrowing money to improve our capacity in agriculture, to produce for the world, to evacuate goods, to process things to sell to the world like Vietnam and some other countries? So borrowing is not really the issue. It's what you're borrowing to do. So, it's, if you look at the greatest institutions in the world, even the NHS that everybody's celebrating today, universal access to healthcare in the UK, those institutions built after the Second World War. Germany built its social market after the Second World War. Will our politicians, our political institutions rise up to the challenge of building the Nigerian economy, not through rhetoric? And it's going to affect you and I. The civil service is large, it's ineffective. Do you want to, get the kind of people that work in this private sector companies that will celebrate work in the civil service? That would mean crunching the numbers, reducing the workforce, paying better. Those are hard decisions that we pray and hope that our politicians can make in response to the crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bimbola. And Mr. Bolson, in wrapping up just in 1 minute, what would you be saying in this time in terms of hard decisions we have to take?
Well, I think things are moving as we here discussing this, because I'm just getting some news on Twitter that the NNPC Group Managing Director, Amelia Carey, is announcing removal of fuel subsidy. I'm sure this is raising the game in terms of if fuel subsidy is removed, our petrol prices down to about 123 plus naira. And a few couple right now. If that is coming through, if the government is removing full subsidy at this point in time, because crude prices are around 32 thereabout and still a little bit volatile, still on the downside, where does that leave Nigerians and Nigerians? What are we waking up to after the lockdown? If fuel prices are down, if crude prices are up, does that mean we're going to go back to what price per liter moving forward? I think these are some of the conversations we need to. We'll take this
in subsequent days.
We need to be taking this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bolson Mufai, for the time, CEO of Frontier Africa Reports. And thank you very much, Mr. Bimbola Agbolaje, MD WNT Capitals. Thank you for joining this session. Yes. And that'll be all for this edition of the Nigeria Economic Discourse. Join us tomorrow once again by 10 a.m. for further discussion around the economy and COVID-19 pandemic. And you can also follow our Twitter handle at WebTVNG and other channels, YouTube. Till we come your way, thank you for watching and have a nice day. Also, stay safe.